Another one of those 3 video days. I'm just going to level with you right off the bat. The reason I've recorded this 3 times, this is my 3rd time, is because I'm very nervous to speak out, because speaking up is not something that birth keepers are known for. Speaking out is not something that doulas are encouraged to do. But I'm a dynamo doula, so I do some shit differently. I also call myself the undoula because I'm going to do this differently. I'm not your typical doula, and I want it that way. And there's something that is on my mind. It has to be on other people's minds. And I want to start a conversation today, a dialogue today, surrounding what is happening with the separation of birthing people and their newborns. Virtually no one is talking about the mental and emotional consequences of doing that, which completely boggles my mind, because they're massive, massive, massive consequences. As a birth worker, I already know what happens after normal birth. Like, normal, everything goes okay birth is traumatic for some people, because there's so much shame with our bodies. Very few people are actually familiar with what birth is, how it works, how it feels, what it looks like. And to be perfectly honest, I wish the doula message boards were public, because the not normal things that are going on, especially in hospitals, whether you're under the care of a midwife or an obstetrician, is honestly horrific. And I wish that I saw doulas, birth doulas speaking about this. I really, really wish I saw postpartum doulas speaking about this, because what happens afterwards is so, so, so important. And I'm not going to give you every single study. I'm not going to list all the stats like I would in the past, because you can go out there and find those on your own. If you're watching this video, you have access to the internet. Those studies are readily available. The stats are readily available on all of this, and I really strongly encourage you to go look at it. It really, really alarms me that no one is having the conversation about mental and emotional health of the birthing parent and of the newborn. It's very well documented that children who are put into the NICU immediately after birth have PTSD from that experience. They have long-lasting, lifelong complications from that separation from their birthing parent. Birthing people not being able to bond with their children. It's very well documented when twilight birth was a thing, which is, I don't know exactly how many decades ago, but like when our grandmothers were giving birth, they were put to sleep. When our great-grandmothers were giving birth, they were put to sleep. And they woke up with this baby that they had no bond with. And there were all kinds of issues with that. There's also several studies that purposefully separated birthing parent from babies, mothers from babies at the time. All the babies died. That's how serious this is. That's why I can't stay quiet about this. And what I'm not understanding is the research is so clear on what happens when that bond is broken, when that immediate bond is broken, and there's no evidence to support what hospitals and doctors are recommending right now. The World Health Organization is not recommending it. Babies are not being affected by COVID. They're just not. Babies might get sick, but your baby's gonna get sick. They aren't gonna die. Babies are not dying from this. We don't separate parents when the parent has the flu. Why would we separate them now? And newborns are even more susceptible to the flu than they are to COVID. To COVID-19. And it's blowing my mind how little research, there is no research to support the recommendation of separating birthing parents and their children. There is no research to support that. And yet on the other side of it, the side that's like, we cannot allow this to happen, The research is huge. There's so much research that points to it being such a bad idea to separate. There are countries that are recommending no breastfeeding. Again, there is no evidence. There's actually evidence to the contrary of that recommendation. COVID-19 is not passed through breast milk. There's a process where when your baby eats, even if the mother or birthing person has COVID-19, they pass the antibodies on to that baby, so that baby has a better chance of fighting it or could be all out immune to it. So the idea that there shouldn't be breastfeeding and there shouldn't be any contact immediately after birth is going to kill people. It's going to kill people. And this is coming from someone who has had massive medical trauma and had to live with that and figure out how to handle that on my own. Because in addition to no one talking about it, in addition to the research being so clear and yet completely ignored, the medical system does nothing for us once we leave it. Postpartum doulas, please speak up about this. I experienced postpartum depression myself. My mom is the one who actually encouraged me to seek help. There was no aftercare for me. There was barely even a discussion. I took some type of stupid quiz at the birth center afterwards that determines whether or not I'm depressed. And that was it. That was it. There was no aftercare. There were no resources. There was no discussion. There was no postpartum plan. None of that. Do you know the very reason why doulas exist is because there's such a massive gap in the emotional support of birthing families? Doulas shouldn't even have to exist in this capacity. And yet we do, because so many people are being traumatized. So many people are raised without any knowledge of this process, without any experience, any idea of what birth is like. And I've lived it. I have lived for 10 years with medical trauma that I just swallowed because guess what? They saved me. That's the fourth piece of this that nobody wants to talk about is the phrase, I saved you. Without me, you wouldn't be here. Without me, your baby would have gotten sick. Without me, your baby would have died. And let me just tell you, being alive is not enough. There's so much more that goes on after that. Before I started doing all of this work and working on myself, I was suicidal. And I had told my therapist these words: if I ever have another intestinal blockage, I would rather die than go back to the hospital because of what I've experienced. When I was 21, I was medically raped by a doctor. I was held down on a table while a medical instrument was shoved inside my body, despite me laying there and screaming no. And this is normal in birth. If you're a birth worker, you know this, and I need you to speak out. This is your call to action. I have read hundreds of stories about birthing folks laying there saying, absolutely not, do not do this to me. And the doctor saying, I know better than you, do it anyway. People having lasting trauma. And these are people who could hold their babies right away. These are people that had the golden hour. And they're still fucking shit afterwards. They're still royally messed up for years, some of them the rest of their lives. It's not an accident that maternal suicide is the number one way new parents die. If we allow this to happen, if you allow this to happen, whether you're inside the medical system or outside of it, or you're a birthing person, or you're married to one, your partner is one, I don't even care if you just know one. We are going to see such a massive increase in maternal suicide rates. Other men, like male suicide rates, father suicide rates, none of that shit is even put in the paper. That's a whole nother even freaking ball game. What kind of care are they going to have when their normal care is ridicule? When their normal care isn't supported? And I just have to tell you right now that if you're a low-risk individual, home birth is safer for you than the hospital right now. Unless you can find one of the amazing hospitals that has deliberately made a commitment to not follow those recommendations. The other thing that blows my mind is that the CDC doesn't actually recommend that. They are recommending it, but it's actually said in that document that it should be left up to the birthing person. And what's happened is there's all of this fear that the media has put out there, that people are absolutely terrified of COVID-19. But what's actually happening is, yes, it's spreading very quickly. Now, no one in their 70s is having babies. This is not to discount the people who are dying from this. My favorite person is 94 years old. So please do not think that I am just brushing those people to the side, because I'm not. The elderly are who are affected by this. There are others who are immunocompromised. Newborn babies are not in that pool whatsoever. I need people to understand this and to hear me. And I needed to express this. And I've recorded this video twice, and I've tried to be like the nice, calm person. I can't do it. I can't do it. Because I know what that trauma does to a person. I am missing gigantic swaths of my memory because of that trauma. I hated my body. I got to a point where I would rather die and leave my child stemming from that event. Birth and medicine is the only place where we pay to go be assaulted by people. Once my doula teacher, Angel, said that to me, I almost threw up, because she's right. We are going to these doctors because we don't know any different. It's what everybody in our family has done. Because there's fear. What if something happens? The C-section rates in this country are over 30%. There is nothing you could do in this world to convince me that 30% of our population cannot give birth vaginally. I now know more people who have had C-sections than haven't. This is not by accident. And if you're a birth worker, if you understand the physiology, just the physiology of birth, you know this. You know that this is just psycho to be recommending the separation. And because people don't know any better, they feel like they don't, you feel like you don't have any choices, and you do have choices. One of the best movies I've ever seen is called Why Not Home. The entire documentary is obstetricians and midwives who have chosen to birth at home because it's safer. Midwives and obstetricians are not there. They're there for medical necessity. They are not there to care for your emotional and mental well-being. Some of them do. Some of them try. But it just isn't possible in that system. It isn't possible. And I'm still struggling with mine, even with all of the support that I now have, and all of the resources that I have, and the fact that it's been years. I'm still triggered by IVs. I still want to crawl out of my skin when I think of that experience. And there are millions of birthing people walking around with that birth trauma, and they don't understand why. And it's because you weren't taken care of. It's because people sticking fingers in instruments in places without your permission is wrong. It's because your experience was hijacked and no one taught you about bodily autonomy and informed consent. No one taught you about birth and the postpartum experience. No one planned those things with you and walked you through those things. That is what a doula is there for. And that is why I cannot even understand why so many doulas are not speaking up about this. The doula world is virtually silent because people are too scared to offend nurses, obstetricians, midwives. They're too scared to be kicked out of hospitals. Guess what? We're kicked out of most of them right now anyway. What do we have to lose? Yesterday, I wrote my lists of what is it costing me and what is it costing others, especially my clients, for me not to show up. And it just really, really hit me. If I don't show up and I don't say this, and I'm sitting here in the background judging all these other people because they're not speaking up, I have to. I don't have any other choice. I have to show up because even if one person chooses to do more research, if one person looks at other options for their birth experience, if one person hires a doula because they want to know more about this, I've done my job. It was worth it. It was worth it. This is not about sending hate out to doctors, nurses, midwives, obstetrician. That is not what this is about. I know personally and have known and experienced so many compassionate, loving individuals. I would not be alive today. I have family members that would not be alive today if it wasn't for modern medicine. So please do not get this discussion derailed. That is not what this is about. That is not what this is about. This is about saving people's lives. This is about saving people's lives, and it is that serious. COVID is not killing any of you unless you're over the age of 60 or severely immunocompromised. And I doubt you're the people watching this video. People were dying before this of all kinds of diseases. And we don't separate. We do not do this because we know the research shows in every single experiment that's been done, every single baby that was separated died. And the parents had crazy, massive implications from that. Obviously, anyone who's lost a child would know what that feels like. I can't stay silent about this anymore. I cannot. I'm going to talk about it. I'm not even in the birth space yet. I don't want to get sick. I'm staying home. So this is what I can do. This is my call to all of you. No one is talking about the mental and emotional consequences of these recommendations. Hospitals are telling people the recommendations are something different than they actually are. Evidence-based birth has come out with an informed consent form for refusal of separating mother and child. I do not give a shit what your doctor or your hospital says to you. You do not have to separate from your baby. If your baby gets sick, the chance of them dying is virtually zero. And guess what? Your baby is going to be sick. Lyric's gotten all kinds of shit since he was born. Respiratory shit included. It will be okay. Wear a mask, wear gloves, breastfeed them. It will be okay. The World Health Organization, all kinds of other medically developed countries are not recommending this. Specifically not recommending this. The research is conclusive. People will die from this. There is no research to support this. There is none. There's no research to support this. And the people who are going through this system, who are having this experience, are being left with nothing afterwards. We will see a rise in maternal suicide. We will see a rise in infanticide. We will see a rise in postpartum depression and anxiety. We will see all kinds of ramifications decades from now in the people who are being born into this system. Our babies are going to have PTSD and all kinds of health problems because of this. So please, this is my call to action. Birth workers, you need to speak up. The time for playing small is over. Over. What if you don't speak up and one of your clients dies or loses their baby because of this? Speak up. Speak up. I'm going to continue to speak up. And I'm going to continue to figure out what I can do to support as many birthing people as I can.